Hi, Paul Gerard from Price Accounting Services, and welcome back to another video in our SMSF thread. This video deals with SMSF compliance. Now, as many other videos in this thread have suggested, the legal and tax compliance rules surrounding self-managed super are very onerous, but once understood, they're not particularly challenging. And often you'll find that having the right sort of guidance and advice and support, it will steer you through those questions. So we guide many SMSFs with those hurdles and make sure that they are compliant, they are knowledgeable, and they have the tools and resources to achieve all the ticks from the auditor. What are some of them? So when a self-managed super fund is formed, it needs an investment strategy, and so that investment strategy should be in writing, and it should address the risks, the weightings, the expected returns, liquidity, and so forth. It also needs to consider the insurance needs of the members, which might be as simple as they don't want any, or they might have insurance elsewhere. Tick, done. Okay, but it must be considered. The other compliance requirements can also include the trustee declaration rule. So in the SIS Act, there is an obligation that a trustee must complete this declaration, and it must be held by the fund, and it can be requested by the auditor at any time. And they basically sign off as knowing the rules. And it's 2 pages of quite fine print, but it sets out the rules in explicit terms. For example, what you can't do, what you might be restricted, what you can't do this, you can't do that. There's a long list. But by knowing these things, we can also, sometimes when people aren't sure, we can steer them towards greater information where they can find out more. The ATO is an amazing resource for SMSF information. They have videos on some of these rules. They have written page after page after page covering them. So a lot of free advice out there, and they have a lot of publications concerning SMSF. So compliance often just requires somebody to assist and guide and steer you. We often say to our clients, if you're not sure, please ask before you do something. It's better to ask before you do something and realize it's not allowed or it's got to be done in a certain way, rather than do it wrongly and suffer the penalties. I'll give you an example of a recent client who was setting up a SMSF. They were borrowing money for the fund to buy a property, and they contributed money into the self-managed super fund because there was going to be a bit of a shortfall and they wanted to meet it. So they put in a bit more than they needed and then took the money back out. Now, that's not allowed. So create all sorts of issues, yet they had signed off knowing that they can't release any money from the super fund. So we did ask, and the auditor did ask, that they reread the rules and make sure that they follow them, because they were printed in 3 places in documents they already had. Not everyone's great on reading documents, but when it comes to self-managed super funds, the compliance hurdles are pretty hefty. Compliance hurdles also include the need to maintain certain records. So you've got to keep lots of paperwork, and you've then got to have accounts drawn up, and financials have to be audited and tax return prepared. We sort of facilitate a lot of that, but we require the primary records to be retained. It's not good enough to suddenly decide that you can't find documents because you didn't keep rollover benefit statements and things like that. Okay, you're going to need them. So get used to storage. Compliance is all about making sure you've got copies of everything. Sometimes too much, but it's better too much than not enough. Compliance penalties need to be understood as well. So at the simplest level, many audit concerns, where they're detected quickly and resolved and rectified quickly, then it may come to nothing. So for example, I've seen many instances where somebody's accidentally deposited money into the SMSF bank account and then taken it back out, or made a payment from a bank account online thinking it was from their own account to realise it was their self-managed super fund, and they've immediately rectified it. Now, I had a client in the last year who did that, and it was a simple case of, look, can you send me a letter that says that what you've done to resolve this? And she managed to rename the bank accounts in her online banking. So one says SMSF, the other one says personal rental. So it's less likely to occur. The auditor was quite accepting of that. It had been remedied. There was no need to report it. But in other cases, there is a need to report, and a contravention report is raised by the auditor, and it goes to the ATO, and the ATO then consider whether further action is warranted. Further action by the ATO can include education camp, I call it that. Think of it as retraining each of the trustees for their responsibilities. It's sort of an online course. You relearn and then get a completion pass, and you're good to go. There's enforceable undertakings where you promise to be a good trustee, never to do something again. There's also monetary penalties. You can be disqualified as being a trustee, monetary fines, orders to wind up a fund, and in the very worst case, criminal charges, but that tends to be limited to cases where SMSF is formed and a scheme is made to strip the fund. So deliberately setting up a fund, ignoring all your responsibilities, that's more likely to be seen as a criminal act rather than one of just sheer error or negligence. Okay. So I hope that helps guide the rigid rules around SMSF compliance. Look, sometimes it comes across a bit heavy. It's probably less heavy in reality if you understand the rules, or at least appreciate the need to ask before doing things. 99% of funds, probably wouldn't say 95% of funds don't have issues. And ideally, when a fund has an issue, it only has one and it doesn't repeat it. In which case, there's rarely ever a consequence. So it's just a matter of know your rules, take care, and be well behaved as trustees. So I hope that's helped guide your compliance issues with self-managed super funds, and we hope you enjoy another one of our videos in this channel, and see you then. Cheers, bye.